Okay, welcome to episode 40 of Experience This. This is going to be a great show today. A bit of a follow-up on the last one. We're going to talk about the experience industry as a whole and maybe the AI, how it's going to affect search and discovery and all things to do with OTAs and structure and suppliers and everything else. So I am here with Laurie.
Hey everyone, glad to be here today. Lori Timoney with Go City.
Hey, it's Bruce Rosard. I'm one of the co-founders of Arrival, and really looking forward to this show. Our featured guest is Sarah Dines. She's the Chief Commercial Officer at Viator, which means that she takes care of the operator community on Viator. Sarah's also been instrumental in promoting the advancement of women's leadership in our industry and has formed a group with a couple others that for now is called Women's Executives in the Experiences Industry. They typically get together for a night at the Arrival event and just have a social night where women talk about how to continue to advance in our industry. And she's been a real spearhead of that. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's such a nice introduction, Bruce. I appreciate it. And I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you, Christian, for inviting me.
Yeah, great. Let's first clear up that we are not going to talk about Viator because everyone's thinking, great, let's grill Sarah and get all this information out of her about Viator, but we're not here
Except
to talk
who
about
is going to be that
today.
next president? We're going
to. That's right.
Well, I can give you a hint. It's not going to be Ben Drew.
No. Okay.
That's great.
That's a very safe answer.
Now we got that done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone probably knows that Ben Drew left 3 weeks ago, Sarah, and he's gone to a different industry. And I think we all wish him success. And there's been no word on a successor yet, and we'll wait and see what happens. But we're not here to talk about that. So, Sarah, you did tell me though a couple of weeks ago that, and we're going to talk about sort of search, and I've talked a lot about Google, and we have as well. And I think you told me you've switched a lot of your personal search to AI, to ChatGPT or something similar.
Well, yeah. So to ChatGPT, for the sort of abundance of things you have to Google each day. But as far as things to do go, I switched a lot of my search to TikTok when I'm looking for, top things to do in a destination or hidden gems in a destination, those sorts of things. So moving it away from Google personally. And also my son, who's 18, does the same thing. I don't think he's ever heard of Google.
I love the paradox of the hidden gems on TikTok when they get like 20 million views and then everyone goes to the hidden gems. But so let's talk about search, and let's talk about we're not going to go into trip planning again because we keep covering that. But I think we all agree that search is changing, right? It is going to be changing. Google is changing. They're having to kind of fit with the LLM future. What are you seeing? How do you see this changing as far as user acquisition, as far as just in travel in general? Let's start with the general question.
Okay. So I think, like everybody here and everybody listening, I don't really know what Google is doing at the moment. Every time I go onto my browser and search things to do in Porto or, bike tours in Sedona, I get a different sort of set of responses. And so I get the SGE response. I might get the, Google ad, the things to do ads. I might get the things to do search. One thing that's really noticeable, though, is the lack of real estate devoted to traditional text-based search, sponsored search, and SEO. And so, like, the real estate, the top of the fold, if you like, is all taken up with these new modules. And I think that's going to have a big impact on SEO and the people who write content that are, specifically promoting specific activities or tours or things to do in places. And I also think it will have impact on SEM as well. If, so much real estate is going to be devoted to other things. I think.
Let me ask a really quick question, or not. You mentioned SGE search. And for our audience, if they saw our last show 39, we spent a lot of time on what SGE is. But for a lot of people, I think that is still so new that a lot of people don't know what that means. Can you explain what you how
Well,
you
I'm a
perceive
lay
it.
person. I'm sure your show last week did a much better job than I will do. But basically, you can get generative AI results, search results from Google. So you type, things to do in Colorado or Boulder, where you live, and you'll get a sort of a space about this big that takes up the majority of the screen, that gives you all of the results that have basically been passed through by all of the blogs and, bigger sites like, say, TripAdvisor or others, who've licensed their content to do that. And so it means that you don't have to continue to sort and search through and look at other content and drill deep into it. And it's sort of all there presented for you.
Do you feel like that content is better, Sarah? You feel that's a better experience than what you had previously?
It's more efficient.
So it gets you right to the heart of the matter, to the content that you feel is most valuable to you.
I see it as a starting point, which is a lot of the way I see AI in general. So if you think about content generation, it's a starting point, certainly in the way I use it and in the way we use it at Viator, for content production. And I know, Christian, you do a lot of it too. So I see it as a very useful, it encapsulates very quickly the basics of what you're trying to get. And then if it doesn't satisfy my requirements, then I'll dig further.
So for OTAs, though, who have huge budgets for search, and you've built a lot of your business through those budgets with Google, is this a good thing? I mean, is it giving you another way to get in front of the customer when they are doing that search? Or is it still too early to tell whether you're beating the algorithm to be in front of those search?
I guess there's two answers. The first, yes, it's too early to tell. The first, that's the second answer. The first answer is that those generative AI results are accompanied by ad units and free search units. And so, to the extent that OTAs appear in those ad units, and I'm sure you probably talked about them last week, where, you search your bike tours and you'll get a shelf of about 20 different options from different providers. And some of them might be, the operator themselves. Others might be aggregators like an Avendo. Others might be OTAs. And so those ad units themselves, I foresee, if they continue the way they are, I see them taking over the text-based search results at some point. I think they're far from that now. And then on the free side of things, you've got the bookable activities from different providers like Viator, like OTAs. And so all of the OTAs are very much connected with Google Things to Do and part of their program, as are many operators directly.
Yeah, I wrote an article on that. I don't know if you guys read it, but it was about Things to Do and the fact that Google can monetize today AI results because it's got things to do and it can sprinkle those results into a search, into a generation.
Yeah.
So already doesn't need search ads. It could switch tomorrow to Gemini and be perfectly fine, I think, on monetization, which is critical. But if you're an OTA, so OTAs kind of came in where Google not failed, but OTA serve a purpose because obviously they aggregate products, sellable products mostly, and make them searchable and filterable. So in some ways it's doing what Google couldn't do, but now Google Things to Do is kind of trying to do that. So in some ways you could argue, well, Google Gemini with Things to Do is potentially cutting out the aggregator out of the middle. That's what Google would, well, Google wouldn't say that, but if you
Google wouldn't say that, nor would they really want to do that. If they really do have a monetization model, the OTAs are going to pay them more money than an operator, right? And Google's job is to get the information to the customer.
I mean, it's an 8.4 billion. I think that's basically what it is, right? With the top 5 OTAs, 8.4 billion they paid Google, last year or something like that. I don't know what it was, some number like that. So how are they going to make up for that if they don't give the OTAs room to advertise?
Well, I think they also, I mean, I think the OTAs still are advertising. I mean, Viator certainly is, and all of our competitors certainly are. And Google can't do things like Google can't do things like give a customer confidence in booking, give them a ticket in their wallet, give them the logistics, give them the ability to talk to the operator. Like they still can't do those sorts of things, even if they can direct you more efficiently to the product itself.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what they are talking about, not ever being the booking engine, right? At least they keep talking about it. I remember very clearly 15 years ago. No, we're not ever going to be a booking engine. They haven't changed that. So it's not about that. It's right. It's about how are you
Yeah, I
going to
agree with that.
monetize it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the trust piece, and I think that is critical. That is, and I think going forward, brands are actually more important, because as we get more generational content, we're not going to know what to trust and what was generated. And if you're credible and you put your name on a piece of content, that means something. And I think that's how we as humans are going to know what's what, because people put their name on it, their reputation and their trust into a brand, which comes up with that. So I think that, yeah, that's still there.
I guess what I'm saying
thinking
is that I totally understand the value of like a brand, right? And I completely agree that there's a trust piece in that. But what I'm also saying is that from what I understand, the Google is just continuing to refine search with every single update. And particularly as they dive further into SGEs, they're presenting content that just becomes that much more valuable and relevant to people. And will that mean that they will gain the trust of the consumer to a degree where they won't have to book through a brand? So sorry if I didn't make that clear, but that's kind of what I was getting at.
Do you
Because
think,
they pointed you there, they've got the trust. Yeah. So
what will the trust lead to, though, in terms of customer acquisition for an operator? Like how will that trust manifest itself in some kind of transaction for an operator or an OTA?
Well, it would have to be bookable, right? And there would have to be, I mean, I'm sure it's going to have an ad associated with it in some way, shape, or form.
I'm a little confused because I think most people trust Google. I mean, it is the search engine that 90% of people use still, or more. Google doesn't want to be that booking engine. Google wants to send the business to partners like OTAs or direct to the operators. It's just different ways of doing it now. So I'm not sure. I mean,
right, but Bruce, but when you type in, let's just say a sport question, right? Who scored the final touchdown in the 1994 Super Bowl? It's got the one box, right? It'll just tell you who it is, and you trust that. I think as sports, you'd probably trust it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're talking something a bit more objective, a bit more subjective, that is a trust thing now. You're telling me to take this bike tour in San Francisco. Normally, I wouldn't sort of go with that. I'd check through a few and I'd go to a few different sites. I think that's what Laurie's saying. If now Google is saying, take this bike tour company in San Francisco, if that comes with trust, that might have overcome some of the trust issues. Google chose that out of all these things to tell me this bike tour company.
Is that bike tour Viator bike tour that you trust the brand because of all the money being spent on TV ads now, building brand? Or is it Bruce's Bicycle Tours of San Francisco, whose brand means nothing? Like, I'm not so sure.
I think the key word that you used, Christian, was subjective. So it's a fact who scored the final touchdown in the Super Bowl, but the best bike tour in wherever is a matter of personal opinion. And there can be signals that is the best bike tour. So it has the most ratings and reviews and the fewest complaints and all that sort of stuff. Other things like low cancellation rates, whatever the things make something good to somebody, to a consumer. But what's good to a consumer is subjective. And even if there's trust built through Google, I don't think Google will ever be able to replace different people's needs, and different people's desires about what they think is right for them. So there'll still be this desire to explore further.
So here's an angle, and I'm not going to necessarily switch sides on this, but maybe I will. But by the way, I just drove down from San Francisco. I'm in Santa Barbara. It's 5 hours, and I spoke for 4 hours, just me and Gemini, because Gemini is now my phone assistant, and we just chatted for 5 hours. We talked about the gold rush, the history of all these people. We talked a bit about SaaS and product-led growth. We talked a lot about travel. It's actually quite disturbing, because you can get into this really nitty-gritty stuff about travel and strategy and all this stuff we're talking about today, and it could be on this podcast right now, and it would be clever enough to
Be doing a better
hold
job
its
than
own.
we are.
Probably would,
All right, next week.
but it's still generating.
Let's do that next week.
Let's
Probably
bring it in.
getting better answers than I am. I'm sure of that.
It's good. But anyway, the other thing I've been thinking about, and this we talked about last week on the show, is the algorithms, the homogenization of content. And I spoke to somebody who was previously at Viator fairly recently, and he told me, and we talk about personalization, about changing the results, and he said, look at any OTA, go to Rome, get your guide, and the top 10 results are the things that sell the best, and that's what 95% of people are going to buy, and that's what algorithms do. That's what Google's done. That's what OTAs have done. That's what Amazon's done. We get this normalization, this homogenization, and everything becomes average, and everyone just gets served up the same thing. And that's just a natural occurrence of an algorithm, which makes me think that a lot of OTAs have got to that place. Google's got to that place, and for a while it was the best way to serve up products. Now AI is here. I think that overcomes that problem. And I think that might be the biggest problem for OTAs, is that AI is going to serve up better results and not this homogenization of results.
Well, two things about that. The first one is the reason that you'll go to Get Your Guide or Viator or any other OTA and find that you've got the same top 10 products or the top 50 products, most likely, is that everybody who goes to Rome goes to the Colosseum, and there are only certain so many ways in which you can see the Colosseum. And so I don't know how AI is going to use the word better results. And so how does AI come up with results that don't send you to the Colosseum? It's sort of,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe that AI isn't supposed to have opinions about what things are the best and better than things that exist today. Sorry, Laura, you were going to add something.
No, I was just thinking, like half of the results that they're using right now, Google search, is like they're crawling the top 5 OTAs to get those results. So they're crawling Viator, they're crawling Expedia, they're crawling Booking, they're crawling all these sites. That's not going to really change, I don't think, at least not for a while. So they're certainly going to be utilizing the information you're putting out, that Booking's putting out, et cetera, and they're using it to serve up the answer. So I guess I'm agreeing. Where are they going to get that information is exactly right.
And what's
I'm talking about when we start to get into chat, when we start to say, and we talk a lot about this, well, I'm going to Rome for 3 days, wife, 2 kids, no segues, hate history. I don't know why you're going to Rome then. And then the results you get from that's then serving really personalized. Whereas if I go to OTA, it's Colosseum, Vatican. It takes me a long time to get to other stuff. Yeah. And you're right to do that, because you need to make a profit, not you, but OTAs are right to do that. But you do end up with, where do I find the diversification in products on an OTA? I have to use filters. I have to choose.
Use filters. You go to an OTA and you filter. I want a food tour.
I think that OTAs are going to have to do a better job at getting people to that right thing that's more personalized than they do today, like a lot better job. Filters are insufficient at this point in time to actually help people find that the thing that is best for them or better for them, based on the inputs that you just cited for inputting into chat.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about last week is that, I think we all agreed that customer intent was going to be very crucial to, sort of your end result and the persona. And so I do agree, because I feel like right now the filters are just not doing the job that needs to be done in order to get to that level of, really diving in and understanding somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I read a comment this week. I forgot, it was on LinkedIn. I've forgotten if it might be my post or somebody else's, but they said, listen, SEO is dead. And in the future, it's going to be AI results and it's going to be social, including TikTok, if TikTok's a social. So it's going to be, and that's influencer / credibility / brand, and then the AI, and Google will be either part of the AI solution or cut out. I don't think it'll get cut out. But he said those are the two things in the future. He also mentioned community, because he's building a community. But do we agree with that? Do we agree it's going to move towards those two sort of channels? Maybe three if we include community.
So you started out by saying SEO would be dead and we would move to social channels.
Again, this is just a comment.
Google SEO.
SEO is dead because Google goes to generative, and it goes to a bit more chatbotty, a bit more search, but you can't get any traffic from doing traditional SEO, was his point, because content is just content, and the AI is going to serve it. Therefore, it's generative AI here, socials, because TikTok, maybe it'll be gone in 9 months, but there'll be something like TikTok
There'll be
still
something
around.
else.
Yeah. And then community maybe as a third one. Do you guys agree that those are the big three sort of user acquisition channels going forwards?
I think
I don't
Sorry, go
agree
ahead.
SEO is going to be dead. I mean, and maybe it just went over my head, but strategic text sequences is part of SEO, isn't it, in the new world?
Yeah,
And
that's
you
a
just
small
have to
hacky
learn how to
thing.
build your
Yeah.
content appropriately. So I think that's still there. Social, absolutely, and social, whether it's social or keep video as a separate thing, which I think it should be. Vertical video should be a separate thing. TikTok, Insta Stories, YouTube Shorts, whatever else comes out, right? And community, to me, that's just friends and family and referral, and that's part of community. Like that's always been. So, what's the big change? I mean, I think we should kick over, and we don't have a ton of time left to talk about video. And what are you seeing at the top of the funnel?
Well, let Sarah answer the question, though. Let Sarah answer the question.
Okay, sorry.
And you, Laurie?
Well, I would say that I'm really interested in social, and not just vertical video, but all social channels and social commerce. And I think there's been an enormous amount written about how much people use TikTok or Instagram in the inspiration and dreaming phase of travel, but people are really using it in the decision, the discover and deciding phase of what to do. And the reason that may not show up for operators or OTAs yet is because the social platforms haven't really done a great job in helping commerce on their platforms. And so you saw like Pinterest's earnings call this week, huge boom in the stock, because they've, talking about the success of bookable pins or shoppable pins. And so if those platforms get better at enabling shopping through them, then I do see a significant shift in customer acquisition into those channels.
Do you know of anyone, Sarah, today who is successful in that? Maybe in Asia, any brands that are already making that work?
Well, what I know is more about how influencers work with brands, and that's partly because of my role at Viator. But how brands can, and when I say brands, I don't mean people like Coca-Cola. I'm thinking of like the with locals or the Eat With, you know, the sort of the operator brands that people, I hope people will come to know as travelers. But doing it through sort of affiliate type programs. So there's a platform called Stella, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it basically allows influencers and small publishers to connect with one another in order to drive bookings. Now, I don't know of any small companies that are succeeding in doing it today, but this capability to do sort of micro and nano influencer programs is starting to exist.
So I've seen Douglas of Arrival ask this question to many people on stage. Probably Ben Drew is one of them. I think I've seen you answer it a couple of times, Sarah. And it's always been skirted. And he's asked everybody for years. The best answer I saw, or the most definitive one, he asked Tim Hughes from Agoda, and who's based in Thailand. Agoda's focused on Asia, right? And he said it just doesn't work. He said, we've tried everything at Booking. We've tried all this vertical video stuff. We've put plenty of money into this. Just doesn't work. And I've heard other people say they've had videos where they've got 1 million views. And I think it was Bidey, who you guys all know. She used to work for Viator and me. And she said zero conversion. It just does not work. Not to say that it will never work.
Selling, you know, like it can't be that complicated. It's easy enough if you've got a creator like at the edge who's showing you, you know, some great footage, and then there's an opportunity to buy a ticket on an OTA or directly through the edge. That's different. That's like an easy sell. You go into the edge, but you can't. It's pretty hard to sell anything too complicated just by looking at a video, and then you're going to press buy. What, for a tour? Definitely not anything like a multi-day tour. That's too much. That's top of the funnel stuff. I mean, I think that it really has to be a simple purchase for somebody to think about buying it from a video.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask a different question, Christian, which is something I know we talked to Ben Drew about on stage, which is when will OTAs bring vertical video into the OTA? So now we are not at the top of the funnel. We're ready to buy, and I'm ready to buy that bike tour, and I can click and see a variety of videos about that specific bike tour while I'm sitting there in front of a buy button. That's my question.
That was the question. That's what Tim answered. We don't do it because it doesn't work. But
within the OTA itself.
Within the
okay. I thought you meant using the video as a marketing.
Yeah, I didn't make that very clear.
Bring in top of the funnel. So you're saying right in. So is that something you guys have thought about, Sarah?
For many years. I mean, video production is extremely expensive if you do it in-house. If you use other people's video, you have to worry about things like quality control and so on. So how do you work with social influencers that create that kind of content to get the right content on your site? And that's a question that we grapple with and haven't resolved yet. I think Airbnb does a reasonable job with their clips of still videos, like still images, and they still images that they paste together and make it to sort of a motionful. It's not a full proper video, but there's motion in it, and it does a nice job merchandising. Doesn't necessarily make me buy the product, but going back to what Tim said, and going back to the idea of selling through video that you brought up, Laurie, I don't know that it's like, we don't see it as the opportunity to have a video that Viator is promoting a product on. We see the opportunity as it's very similar to bloggers. Like, to say that somebody will not go from a vertical video to a transaction is like saying somebody won't go from a blog to a transaction. We know that's not true because we have thousands of affiliate partners, tens of thousands of affiliate partners with a link in a piece of written content that they click on and come and buy. So I don't see that as being terribly different from doing it through a video. If if the commerce platforms enable much better a much better shopping experience for people, and they haven't done that. Now I know TikTok is introducing a marketplace, or planning to introduce a marketplace to enable more shopping on site. But certainly it's been, vertical video has been inhibited from the kinds of things that bloggers have had, because there isn't that ability to link out to multiple places within those platforms. And I think that will change. And I can tell you that we're launching something fairly new that will be solving that problem in late June.
So why don't we just tell us now, and then we can.
Well, basically,
You heard it here.
The go-to-market team will kill me. But basically, an influencer can only link out. They can use Linktree. They can link out to a number of things. But think about. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the Amazon influencer program, where if I'm an influencer, I can go and create a collection of items that I want to promote, and it's my shop on Amazon, and then I promote it on all my different social channels. I drive the traffic to Amazon. The person books my luggage thing that I've recommended, and I make a commission. So something along those lines. And that's not available at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder if AI is going to help solve this. We talked last week about Meta, right? Meta's got their new AI, which is really good, and it's all over Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Yeah. And now it's part of a post, potentially. Some posts already on there.
Yeah.
So I'm watching somebody now making a video, or have gone to the waterfall. I could go right in there and say, where can I buy this? They've got to deal with Google. They could potentially serve up Google things to do links right there. I'm not sure if they would, because you're going to go off platform then.
Well, not only are you going to go off platform, you're not going to make any money.
Well, if I'm an operator, I will, because I'll get the
direct booking. Yeah, as an operator, yeah. I think it's hard for operators to keep coming up with, Pinterest is like evergreen content. A blog is evergreen content, but TikTok is so instantaneous. Like, I imagine if I'm an operator and I'm trying to run my operation and give guests the best experience that I can give them, spending time and money on coming up with original content constantly that is somehow interesting and unique, and that doesn't sort of, isn't sort of a once a week thing. I imagine it would be pretty hard to do.
Yeah, it's challenging. But I mean,
you find that with GoCity?
Yeah, they do. Well, they're like a one-stop shop, right? They're out there, running the tours. They're, managing the booking platform. They're, coming up with their socials. I'm sure it's a huge challenge unless they have somebody else doing it for them.
You have to do a thing with Mr. Beast, Laurie. You have to just find some angle with Mr. Beast, and he's got to pay someone to live on the edge for 6 months or something with no food or something.
There you go.
Something like that.
You should sell that idea, Christian.
Yeah. Me and Mr. Beast will work together on it. We'll come up with something.
But it's interesting because, so what's the alternative to everything else? Everything we're talking about right now? I mean, obviously you can just continue to grow and evolve with search in whatever form it takes, right? But then what are the other ways that that an OTA can potentially move? So one of the things that I've happened to notice in the past year is that more OTAs seem to be increasing their share of B2B. It seems to me like, B2C was a very big piece of the pie, but now I just see this B2B channel just growing rapidly. And I'm seeing it not only with the OTAs, but I'm seeing it with the businesses themselves, like DMCs and, packaged holidays are growing. And I don't know what your take is on that, Sarah, but it's just an observation that I've had in the past year or so.
So when you say B2B, do you mean, so for example, Viator has 300-some thousand products, and we sell those to consumers on the Viator point of sale and on TripAdvisor, but also then through distribution channels like Booking.com or Travel Leaders Network and that sort of thing?
Yes, exactly. Or it could be that there's travel. Well, you obviously have a travel agent network, right? So that's your B2B as well. And, I know that B2B can also be affiliates, right? I know that they can
Yeah.
be, they come in all shapes and sizes. I guess what I'm just wondering is if we're going to see more OTAs kind of building out that channel in answer to some of the challenges that, frankly, a lot of them have had with Google search in the last
Yeah.
couple of years.
So I think there's two ways an OTA could go. One of them is, so you're very lucky to be speaking to me because I happen to be responsible for B2B as well as operators at Viator. So I know what you're talking about. One of there's two directions that you could go, and I don't know that anyone has the money to focus on both of them. One of them is to continue to grow that B2B channel. So like you said, affiliates, travel agents, e-commerce partners. I think, people have probably heard about Uber and other people who are interested in this. What I see in the market is an increasing desire of companies in every single industry to participate in the consumer appetite for experiences over things. And so what that means is, let's say in the financial services sector is a really good example where traditional banks or credit card issuers now all have some kind of travel credit card that they offer, and they want to be able to offer experiences through that. And then how do they get that supply? They have to get it from an aggregator, like an OTA. They can't get it from anybody else. So theoretically, an OTA could double down on that distribution channel. The other alternative is that you build brand and you focus on the consumer and the customer and the B2B experience. You have a 10 out of 10 customer experience, no matter whether you're on the app or you're in customer service or whether you're on the day of tour. And you become less and less reliant on Google in order to drive traffic to your website. And in fact, you mentioned that you've seen our ads on TV, and it has driven an increased amount of direct traffic to the website. And so focusing on that is something that I think Booking and Expedia have also talked about in earnings calls over the last several years, is to really focus on brand. And Airbnb, of course, is another one. That the brand becomes the central thing that gets you away from the sort of appetite or the need or the drug of Google, if you like.
Yeah, I think the challenge with and I agree with you, but I think the challenge with that is that there's only so many brands that people really recognize in the experiences space, right? It's very limited. There's, we know who they are, but most lay people have absolutely no clue. Even with some of the ones we think of as the bigger OTAs, some of lay people are like, I don't know. Who are these guys? So I think that's another whole challenge, right? Building brand loyalty.
Absolutely. If it weren't difficult, we'd have done it today, and we've spent all the money we've spent on Google somewhere else. But it's, there is a rising awareness. In our research, what we've discovered is that 94% of US travelers like the idea of a single place to go to book things to do. And fewer than 30% know that such a proposition even exists. So there's a lot of education that has to go into it before you can actually get to building a brand, because people don't know that the category actually exists. So you're right.
Interesting.
Yeah, I saw an interview. It wound me up with that stat on it. I've forgotten who was being interviewed. It might have been Ben Drew.
It might have been Ben.
But I also wonder if that matters, if they know it exists. I wonder how that question comes across. And I don't know if a makeup platform exists, but I assume it does when I need to buy some makeup. I don't know why I came up with makeup, but
you're just thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't need to know that exists.
You can get it everywhere, Christian.
Searching. Yeah, I'm sure I can.
No, but think about it. Before Booking.com or Expedia, you had to go to you know, you had to research and find, well, you couldn't research on the internet. You'd find a hotel or look in, you know, a travel guide to find recommendations for hotels and have to call them and so on. And wouldn't it be great if all of a sudden you didn't have to do that anymore and you could just go and find a place where you could book things to do and you could get all your tickets and, like I say, communicate with the operator and so on.
So here's another angle. I don't know how much time we have left, but I know you came from audio tours as well. I'm not sure if that was right before Viator. And you
Yeah,
worked
it was.
for,
I actually came straight from an audio tour company.
and that was Detour, right? Which
It was
was
Detour. Andrew Mason
Mason,
from Groupon. Yeah.
who started Groupon, right? So there's been a lot of interest, obviously, in audio, and this wasn't the original subject, but why not? And there's a lot of companies now doing it in the audio space, and AI has just made that 100 times easier and probably 10 times better as far as the content. Do you see, where do you see that? We're seeing a lot of companies now try and create that at massive volume. Not that it needs to take over, but do you think that's going to end up being a significant product in the destination actual experience?
So you may be aware I was interviewed recently about this subject and I said no. And one of the assertions that you made was that AI could do it better. And what I learned from 15 years in the audio tour industry is that what makes a great audio tour is the story and the storyteller. And if AI is better at coming up with stories, like what we found, I was the CEO of a company that was owned by Discovery Channel for 7 years. And what we found were the most successful audio tours were those where the person who was chosen to tell the story had the right to tell the story, had a unique perspective, and had these sort of very engaging stories to tell about place. And so AI might know more about a place, but AI will not be a human being who has experienced or lived a certain place. And so for that reason, I don't think they'll be better. And then the other is this just sort of human connection. I mean, we were talking about the idea of driverless cars and on audio guides and how that would replace tour guides. You know, I was in Porto 2 weeks ago and I went on a tuk-tuk tour that I found on an OTA. And, you know, the driver was, the guide was, you know, a guy who's an architect and doing this as part of, you know, as well. And he took me around to all these local places and his story combined with his relationship with Porto, combined with the being on the street with the open air and going to the hidden gems, like it's just very hard for me to understand how that can be replaced by an audio tour which typically, you know, the ones I've seen so far are like, you know, if you look to the left here, you'll see the Grand Canyon. If you look to the right here, you'll see, you know, the Tower of London. And they're not stories. It's not storytelling. And I think that's what people really engage with when they travel.
Yeah, there's a app called Audio, AUTIO. You guys heard of that? Kevin Costner's AUTIO.
Oh, yes, Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Kevin Costner is very involved with it, and he's the one telling a lot of the stories. So you talk about storytelling and authenticity. I mean,
yeah.
I think I'll listen to anything that guy talks about, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot on the West, you know, so related to his last series of Yellowstone, et cetera. So I think that's what you're really talking about. Like those can be really engaging stories, and they're meant to be. I'm driving through Wyoming, and there's a story about Wyoming where I'm driving through Jackson Hole or what have you, and Kevin Costner's telling me the story.
Yeah, I like that. The authenticity, that's the word I left out.
Yeah.
So I actually asked Gemini about this. We talked for about an hour on this exact subject ahead of this, and I asked Gemini if it's important that the story has to be true. Because I was a tour guide, I've done many tours, and I probably told not knowing lies, but not everything I said was true now that I've fact checked it. But sometimes the stuff that's not true is better. And are we in the entertainment business like Hollywood, or do we have to stick to facts? Because I can make up good stories that make people laugh or intrigue, and does it matter that much? As long as they're not complete outright lies about dates.
Well, you're talking about like historical fiction.
Historical fiction. That's
historical
exactly.
fiction, which is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really feel like people learn more through historical fiction than they do through just telling them facts. Like I was a tour guide as well. And one thing that I learned was you don't barrage people with a bunch of dates and facts because they won't remember any of it and they'll be bored to death. So I agree with you, Christian. I think yeah, that's the historical fiction route, Bruce. That's the way to go.
Fine line between you just completely making stuff up. It's like at this, you guys
Well,
have seen
I
Fargo,
probably
right?
did that.
Have you seen Fargo at the start where they say this is based on the truth, and it's just not at all. And it's kind of part of the drama is that they claim it's based on a story and it's not, and confuses everyone.
No, I like what you said, Laurie, because I think this the notion that people get bored with facts and dates and they're just not interesting. Like people want to know the story of place, and the date that it happens is not as relevant. Yeah. Unless it's tied to another date, like Abraham Lincoln's murder, assassination.
Have you guys seen the movie that's out now, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare?
No.
For historical fiction, unbelievably great. I loved the movie. It was a comedy about World War II. And
hilarious.
Hilarious topic. And what Winston Churchill did, basically, it was kind of the founding of the British, whatever they call their CIA. And yeah, great movie. So anyone watching, you guys go see it. Certainly worthwhile. And it's a classic historical fiction, right? It is based on fact and what really happened. But the story and the way it was told was so entertaining. Of course, it wasn't all true. So I think it's all related.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
We do have a quick fire thing, but I just want to get one last question in. Is the next 5 years? I talk a lot about this. I think everyone knows that everything's going to change. Do you think the industry is going to be completely different in 5 years? I'm not asking you what it's going to look like, but all three of you, do you think we've got 5 years of complete upheaval ahead of us, as far as structure, as far as how everything works, as far as OTAs, Google? Are we going to look back and say, yeah, this is completely different now? Or is it just iterative and it just moves slowly?
I'm going to let someone else go first.
I'll go. I think that the actual experience piece of it is not going to change much. I think that people want they want to, well, to be not very creative. They want to experience something, right? They want to have something, a memory that they can remember. They want a human interaction. They want to smell the smell, taste the taste, all that kind of thing. So that piece of it, I don't think will change. I think that 100% AI will create a lot of efficiencies, especially operationally, customer service, all of that. And I definitely think the world of search is going to change for sure in 5 years, no doubt, probably a lot sooner than that. But the actual experience of it, the boat tour, the boat cruise, all that, that's not going to change.
I'll jump in next. Let Sarah wrap that up. It's a really interesting question and topic. For 5 years is a long time frame. Like 3 years might be a better time frame. Because I agree that the experience isn't going to change. But what I do see maybe changing is I'm not carrying a Lonely Planet book. I mean, I haven't ever carried one around anyway. But if you're carrying around some kind of book or even on your iPhone, what it is, where I can stay, what are the experiences, what are the things to do? AI is going to dramatically change that. We all know that. That's what we've spent most of this past hour talking about. That's where I see the biggest change is discovery of what is there to do. But once we figure out what we want to do, I agree with Laurie, the experiences aren't going to change as much as some in our industry who happen to live near London might think. So as far as operator, technology, distribution, I see efficiencies in there, but I think that relationship still exists like it does today. An operator needs technology that then needs to connect to distributors, and that's how customers find them. And I'm not seeing that that's going to change a lot.
So I really have nothing to add. Experience will be the same, efficiency gains and different ways of finding. And to your point, Christian, at the beginning, I don't think that structurally anything massive is going to change in the industry between now and I'd go for 5 years. Three is a good number, but I give
Right.
it 5 years before I would think anything would change.
I just don't want us to look back, 10 years, a bunch of hoteliers, oh, is anything going to change? No. And then, the next day Airbnb starts, right? Right. Like that
Right.
is definitely could be lurking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lonely Planets are great, by the way, Bruce. I've got so
Oh
many.
my gosh, I
I've been
know.
testing them to see if they have anything that the AI doesn't know, and they
And do
don't.
they?
But I still like the books. I still like to have that thing in my hands.
You
I
like
do
the
too.
word book. Yeah.
I love a good, remember, Let's Go
Mhm.
Europe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I used that when I first came to the United States as a student.
Nothing like opening up that book, like, yeah, man, where am I going
It's
now?
the best. So, Sarah, on that note, we need some information from you. We need the best 3 countries that you've been to, and then we need the 3 countries that you haven't been to yet that you want to go to.
So you're repeating what we did last week?
Are
You two
we,
aren't.
should
Only
I watch
Sarah.
the end of the
Just for
video?
Sarah.
So
Only
best
Sarah.
3 countries that I've been to and best 3 that I would like to go to.
Yep.
Okay. I am going to start with the United States of America, my home for 30 years, but definitely has top 2 cities in the world for me. So US.
Hold on a second. Top 2 cities, obviously New York and San Francisco.
New York and Los Angeles.
Oh,
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Interesting. Okay.
says
For
the
me,
woman who lives
for
in
me.
San Francisco.
Well, I live in San Francisco for a variety of reasons, not relevant to this conversation. Okay, so United States, Germany, and India. And then the top 3 places that I haven't been that I want to go are China, which I'm going to in 2 weeks from now for the first time. I'd like to go to Brazil for the architecture, believe it or not, and Turkey.
Very good.
How does that
Interesting
compare
answers.
with other?
We've only done it once, so we don't know yet. We'll let you
And
know.
everyone else only
Let
got
me
one.
know. People
Everyone
have
else only
probably
got one
countries
choice.
I've never heard of before.
We didn't get 3 choices. We only got one. Yeah.
Yeah, now because we've all done it, we can't keep doing it every week, so it's just going to be focused on the
I
guests.
think we need to
so-
come up with a new question, Christian.
It's a great question. Come on.
No, it is. It's a good question, but yeah.
Well, I think top 3 activities you've ever done. Top 3
I was just thinking,
experiences.
like, what's your favorite experience, or what experience haven't you done that you would like to do?
So
There you
my
go.
favorite experience I ever did was an 8-hour experience that was supposed to be 4 hours. That was a market visit and cooking class in Bangkok, and I did it actually the day before arrival Bangkok back in 2019. And it was an incredible woman. She took us to a bunch of temples and rice paddies and all kinds of things, and an exhausting 8-hour day that, as I say, was supposed to be 4 hours, but it was just amazing, wonderful.
Nice.
Very good. All right, I think that wraps us up for today. Thank you, Sarah, for your wisdom and time and
Aw,
for joining
thanks.
us.
Thanks
Really
so much for
appreciate it.
having me.
Really appreciate
Finally.
it, Sarah. Great to have you on. Okay.
Yeah, it's great to see you all. Have a good weekend.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, well, I think that's it for today. I just want to say, well, I'm going to see you this weekend, Laurie, because we're going to be in
Yep.
Los Angeles for
will.
IPW. A couple of other events. I think Arrival have now announced Edinburgh is going to be after San Diego, right? That's the new Arrival event.
Edinburgh is November 23 to 25. Yes.
Are you going to call it Edinburgh or are you going to say Edinburgh? Edinburgh.
That's a tough one. We've actually studied that. Edinburgh. Yes.
It practices
I'll help.
a lot.
I'll do a little lesson for you guys.
I
I'll
would
bring
appreciate
Scottish
that.
Chris
Yeah.
along to help you guys. And then
Yeah.
Sarah, I saw also that you have announced a Viator event.
Yeah, it's called Viator Ignite, and it's a conference for operators. So it's one day with right before Arrival San Diego, so September 30th this year. And basically, it's a chance for operators to come and see people one-on-one. We have about 200 spots for one-on-one consultations, sort of how to ignite your growth on Viator, basically. So, already got a lot of sign-ups, so looking forward to seeing everybody there.
That's great. And that's the same venue, right, as Arrival? So it'll
Exactly
just
the
be a
same venue,
continuation.
yeah.
Excellent.
So if you're coming to Arrival, add it on. If you're not going to Arrival and you're coming to Ignite, think about going to Arrival.
That's great. Very
They're
good.
all meant
Thank
to
you for
work
that.
together. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. And hope to see you guys all soon.
Take care.
All
Have a
right.
good weekend at
Take care.
Thank you
IPW.
guys. All right. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.